New York recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials. And I am looking forward to your detailed explanation for why you have withheld almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, there are 3 million documents, so I didn't get through much. But one thing I didn't see was the client list that you said you had on your desk a year ago. I did, however, find a couple of important documents. An 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida against Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. For reasons that I cannot understand nor are permitted by the bill, they were still redacted, even for members of Congress. So, Ms. Bondi, will you commit right here to immediately providing those 2 documents in unredacted form to members of Congress?
All right, folks, buckle up, because what you just watched was not oversight. It was not accountability. It was a political stunt. And it completely exposed a strategy we've been watching for years now. You've got Congressman Dan Goldman going after Pam Bondi in this explosive hearing, waving around documents, claiming there's some secret client list, accusing the Department of Justice of protecting Donald Trump, and trying to turn this into the headline of the week. But let's slow this down and actually unpack what happened here.
Now, there is no reason for this to be hidden from the American people. There is no privilege, there is no attorney-client privilege, and I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019?
So will you unredact this? Will you unredact this?
You were lead counsel on that. Privileged.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Privileged.
Privileged, of course. I look forward to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you stop the clock? This is on your time. It's not on Mr. Goldman.
Even
though you used your improper redaction,
you'll like my answer.
To continue to protect
time belongs to the member.
We'll be happy to release them.
We'll stop the clock. We'll stop the clock. Time belongs to the member. Go ahead.
Even though you used improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators associated with Jeffrey Epstein, you did the exact opposite thing with the survivors and victims of this scheme. So their identification information was really the only thing required to be redacted, and it was not. And it's clear this was not a mistake. This was not by accident. This was not because you only had 30 days when you really used 75, and that doesn't even include all the hours last March that you were redacting it. But I'll tell you why it's clear it wasn't a mistake. There is an email entitled Epstein Victim List. There are 32 names. 1 is redacted, 31 are not. So someone looked at it and decided to redact something. And I will tell you that that is clearly intentional to intimidate these survivors and victims. Now, in an interview last week.
How will you tell me that's intentional?
In an interview last week, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche
You can't go off script.
said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave people sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true. Now, would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and estimate and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them. And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses
Gentleman's
to
time
talk
has expired.
to, and I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott.
Thank
May
you.
I have a moment, Congressman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Here we go. Here's the photograph. This is why he wanted to repeat everything that had been said previously on Epstein. This is his state, New York. You probably don't even know who this is. Wahid Mohammed from Afghanistan.
Yes, because I'm no longer a prosecutor.
Convicted of assault. Wow, he represents New York. Wow, yet he doesn't care about the illegal aliens convicted of crimes. Assault and homicide. No longer a prosecutor, so he doesn't care about his constituents. Here we go. Arson, El Salvador, Miguel Palacios. Fermin Flores Ramales, Mexico, rape.
Let's talk about the 70% of immigrants who are detained without a criminal conviction or arrest.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock. Time belongs to Congressman Knott.
First off, notice the framing. Goldman claims he reviewed unredacted materials. He says almost half the documents were withheld. He demands immediate release of an 86-page prosecution memo and a draft indictment. Then he dramatically pulls out an email from Epstein to Maxwell that supposedly references statements from Donald Trump. And what's the goal? Not transparency, not justice. The goal is to revive the narrative that somehow Trump was secretly tied to Epstein in a way that contradicts everything we already know. This is the same playbook, different hearing room. Now let's talk about something important that the media won't emphasize: privilege and legal process. Bondi responds that certain materials are privileged. Goldman scoffs at that. But here's the reality: prosecution memos and draft indictments are almost always protected materials. They involve internal deliberations, legal strategies, potential ongoing investigations. You don't just dump those into the public because a congressman wants a viral moment. That's not how the justice system works. But Goldman knows that. He's not confused. He's not naive. He's performing. And then comes the emotional pivot to victims. He accuses the department of mishandling redactions. He claims victims were ignored. He has them stand up. It's powerful optics. It's designed to create a moral high ground in the room. Now, let me be very clear about something. The victims of Epstein deserve justice. Full stop. No political games. No protection for powerful people left or right. But here's where things get interesting. If this was truly about transparency across the board, why wasn't the same energy applied when questions were raised about powerful Democrats who associated with Epstein? Why wasn't the same outrage front and center when certain media darlings were photographed repeatedly with him? Why is the focus laser targeted only in one direction? Because this isn't about Epstein. It's about Trump. Again, every single time. Now here's the part that really stood out to me. Bondi pivoting to immigration and crime statistics. You could see the frustration. You could see the broader context being drawn. And whether you agree with that pivot or not, it reveals something important. Conservatives are tired of selective outrage. They're tired of hearings that feel like political theater, while real issues, border security, crime, economic instability, are hitting everyday Americans. The American people see through this. And here's the bigger question nobody in that room asked. If there truly was a smoking gun email that proves a massive lie, why hasn't it already been splashed across every front page in America? You think the media would sit on that? Of course not. We've lived through 7 years of investigations, impeachments, leaks, anonymous sources, bombshells that turn into nothing burgers. Russia, Ukraine, documents, taxes, impeachment attempts, and now Epstein again. At some point, Americans start to recognize the pattern. Now, does that mean no one powerful should ever be scrutinized? Absolutely not. If anyone committed crimes tied to Epstein's operation, they should face justice. Period. But what Americans are reacting to isn't accountability. It's the constant weaponization of hearings for political narrative building. You could see it in Goldman's tone. You could see it in the theatrical document holding. You could see it in the repeated interruptions. This wasn't a legal cross-examination. It was campaign content. And let's talk about something else. Goldman referenced a client list that he claims Bondi once said existed on her desk. That narrative has floated around for years, the mythical client list that's always about to drop. If such a list existed in a prosecutable form, why hasn't it been introduced in court filings already? Why hasn't it surfaced in any of the criminal proceedings tied to Epstein or Maxwell? Because the reality is more complicated than Twitter threads suggest. Now, the most telling moment of the entire exchange wasn't even an email accusation. It was when Bondi fired back about Goldman's impeachment history. That wasn't random. That was a reminder. Goldman was part of prior impeachment efforts. He has a track record of aggressive anti-Trump litigation and investigation strategies. So when he presents himself as a neutral truth seeker, conservatives don't buy it. They see a pattern. And here's the political reality we're heading into. We're entering another major election cycle. What happens every time we approach one? Investigations resurface. Hearings intensify. Narratives amplify. Coincidence? You decide. Now let's end on this note. If there are documents that can legally be released, release them. If there are redactions that were improperly applied, fix them. Transparency builds trust. But what Americans won't tolerate anymore is selective transparency, where one side gets scorched earth investigations and the other side gets quiet deference. Equal justice under law isn't a slogan. It's a principle. And until both parties are treated with the same investigative intensity, half the country is going to view moments like this as political warfare, not justice. That's why hearings like this don't move the needle the way they used to. People are tired. They want accountability, not theater. They want justice, not narrative crafting. And they definitely want consistency. All right, guys. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We're going to keep covering these hearings and cutting through the noise without the media spin. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this was about transparency, or was this just another political setup? I'll see you in the next one.